Hi, Bernadette. It's so lovely to spend some time with you. And we're here to talk about Alfonso Del und Estrella.
That's right.
Alfonso und Estrella. Oh, my goodness. So why this piece?
Well, first of all, why Schubert?
Okay, why Schubert?
Schubert's been living with me for decades.
Yes.
We're not professional musicians, as you know, but we had lots of friends who were, and friends who loved music. And the idea was to get together. And it always centred around Schubert's birthday on the 31st of January, partly because he's a wonderful composer for lots of musicians to get together and play and sing.
Yes.
As I'm sure you know, there are more than 750 songs. So, and you can sing them in almost any key or any far you like.
Yes, yes.
So singers are satisfied, and if they're not, there's lots of choral music they can sing together.
Yes.
For your pianists, there's impromptus and sonatas and piano trios and piano quintets, so they're all perfectly happy.
Yeah.
People who play instruments, there are 14 quartets, there are 2 quintets, there's an octet.
Oh, wow.
Clarinetists can play the Shepherd on the Rock with their favourite singer.
Yes.
And then there's the Arpeggione
Yes.
sonata. And you can play that with a violin or a viola, or a cello, or a clarinet, or even an arpeggione if you can find one.
I'm really getting your love for Schubert, Bernadette. It's amazing that you have all this.
Every 31st of January it's Viennese food and Austrian wine and all this wonderful music.
Yes.
And I was really quite shocked to discover that he died at the age of 31 with all this avalanche of wonderful music.
Yes.
Oh, I forgot to mention the 10 symphonies, so just throw those in. But then I discovered, reading round, because sometimes I didn't feel up to playing with professionals and I preferred to just cook and to talk about Schubert, so I studied it and discovered that he had written 20 operas.
Oh, wow.
Which no one
I
ever
have to say,
stages.
I didn't know that.
No,
Oh,
20
I didn't know that he'd written 20 operas.
So I looked at these, and the obvious one to try and rehabilitate is Alfonso and Estrella, because it's through composed. There have been 2 productions in the last 30 years, but they were not complete.
Right.
So ours is the world premiere of a complete
Oh, amazing!
production.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So, do you know why the others weren't complete and why yours is?
Well, I think he started some and didn't finish. There's a lot of
Yeah.
things unfinished. There's a symphony unfinished,
Yeah,
although
yeah.
that's probably intentional, I gather.
Yeah.
But the other thing is quite a few of them are what we call Singspiels, which is okay. Zauberflöte is a Singspiel, and Führung is a Singspiel, but there's nothing wrong with a Singspiel, but it's just not as appealing, I think, to an opera house.
Yeah, and can you just explain what you mean by Singspiel, just for those that may not
Well,
know?
it's a bit like a musical. There's
Right.
a bit of dialogue and a bit of aria
Okay.
and a bit of ensemble,
Yeah,
and a bit more dialogue.
Yeah.
It's the dialogue which is like recitative in that it's that moves the action on. Yeah.
Lovely, yes.
So, the idea was to try and do Alfonso and to ask oneself why it had so seriously flopped. So I started reading criticisms and I read them backwards. And it became perfectly obvious that every critic was saying exactly the same things. They'd simply said whatever they'd read that people had written before. And none of these people could ever have seen a production. So they said, oh, he's undramatic. And I thought to myself, the guy who composed Erlkönig, undramatic? That's not likely.
Yeah.
And then I looked at the plot of the opera and I thought something that's got 2 battles and a rape and various other things. You'd have to work pretty hard to make that undramatic.
Yeah.
So I don't think it is undramatic.
So what are you doing that's different then?
Well, our musical director, Alex Ingram, is someone who's...
Oh, I love Alex.
Yes, he's really keen on drama.
Yes.
He was telling me how, as a small boy, he had a model theatre and his family used to have these puppets that they made opera with.
Oh.
And so he's absolutely with me in that it's not a it's not a concert version in costume.
Yes.
It's a drama.
Amazing.
And that's the other layer that we add to the club sandwich that is opera.
Yes, yes.
And so people who've tried to put on Schubert have been Schubert lovers.
Yes,
And they're into Lied.
yes, yes.
And so all the productions have been incredibly referential and static and pretty
Yeah.
and elegant. There's even one that was done in which the stage has full of violins of different sizes. Why, I don't know.
Wow.
But then there is a giant lectern, and everyone who gets through the recitative through the speaking, to the aria, stands at the lectern and sings.
Wow.
This while they're trying to rape someone or fight a battle.
Wow.
It's obviously not the sort of thing that will make people realise how dramatic the opera is. So Alex and I went down to the Musikverein in Vienna, where they have the archives, and Alex was privileged to look at the original manuscript.
Oh, amazing.
And he said that everything about it, you know, the slashings and the crossings out and the wild sweepings and the enthusiasm, suggests that he was not trying to write a string of Lieder. He was trying to write a really impassioned, dramatic piece.
Oh, wow.
So this is what we hope to do. That's not to say the music isn't beautiful.
Yes, yes.
We had an audition. We were rather gloomy about the audition because we thought, who wants this role? I mean, who wants to learn in German a part that they will probably never be asked to sing again?
Oh, well, I'm sure there are loads of enthusiastic singers
Well,
that have wanted to.
every single one, those who were chosen and those who weren't,
Yeah.
said at the end of the audition, thank you for introducing me to this beautiful music.
Oh,
I'm so glad to know
wow.
it. So that was very encouraging.
Yes, of course, yes. I mean, I know a lot of singers who are always interested in going back to music that's undiscovered, because we hear so much of the same pieces again and again, which I'm a true lover of. I am a traditionalist like that, but you know, but there are other singers that really want to discover those old works. So
Cyril
that's
Smith said to
Yeah.
my piano teacher, if things are hackneyed, there's a reason. And I think that's very true, and I love all your stuff as well.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're right, people do search for something that's a bit different.
Yes,
But too often they search for obscure pieces by obscure composers.
yes.
But this guy,
Yeah, I know.
by any
I
count,
mean,
he's number 4. You know,
Yeah.
Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, Schubert. And he's certainly not obscure.
yeah.
And his music is wonderful.
So, what are you planning to do with the piece then? I mean, who's directing it? Are you directing the piece?
I'm directing it, Alex is music director.
Yes? Okay, brilliant.
So first of all, we're planning, and we are working very closely together to identify the parts where the music can actually be fortified by something dramatic on
Yes,
stage,
yes.
and the bits where the drama on the stage can actually be intensified by the music if they come together.
Yes.
I mean, first thing I think, looking at a lot of modern productions, is for the artistic side and the music side not to fight each other and
Yes.
undermine each other.
Yeah.
But if, in addition to that, they can actually work together.
Yes. Well,
Um,
that's what makes a team so important
Yes.
in opera, isn't it? Is
Yeah.
how you actually work together and collaborate together to make music and to make drama.
Yes.
So tell me, you know, you have that job, but who have you employed to sing those roles?
Ah, right. Well, I'm really delighted that the tenor who's singing Alfonso is a fellow medic.
Oh,
So I'm not going to be running the sanatorium on my own. He's going to be roped in to treat cuts and bruises and faints. And,
Wow.
and then, I don't know whether you remember the baritone who sang Figaro for us.
Maybe
Denver
not.
Martin Smith.
Oh, I love Denver. He's great.
He's
Yeah.
singing Freuler.
Oh, I love
And
it.
I'm really pleased about that because he has that dignity that,
Yes, he
that
does.
the old
It's
king
very
should have,
stately.
and the benevolence.
Yes, yes.
Because Freuler is the king who's been exiled, he's been kicked out, he's in
Yeah.
fear of his life, he's gone the other side of a mountain into a deep valley where he lives
Yes.
in obscurity. And there, the people fall in love with him because
Oh.
he he judges their disputes, he gives wise counsel, he sings to them, he brings a civilizing influence. And they're living in paradise because of him. So the first scene is when they come to thank him because he's been there 20 years and he's turned their lives around.
Oh, wow.
As you can imagine, 10th century Spain.
So tell us a bit. Tell us a bit about the story. How does the story go from, from start to finish?
It's a bit like The Tempest in that he has a son, and this poor son, he has feelings that he's born for greatness. He has no idea why, and his father won't tell him anything, except that he forbids him to leave the valley. And adolescent young men, they have a wanderlust, which he is not allowed to give into, and so he's really quite a cross adolescent at the beginning.
Yes.
The usurping king has a daughter, and she goes hunting one day and she gets lost in the mountains, and guess what?
She runs into him?
She runs into him, and he is her destiny. And I don't need to tell you the rest of the story.
No, exactly.
You can imagine it.
Yes, exactly. Oh, that sounds wonderful.
So it all ends happily, and it all ends in forgiveness and reconciliation, which I find very Mozart.
Yes, Mozart, I was just about to say, very Mozart. It's kind of sounds like a fairy tale.
But the actual setting, yes it is, the setting is a bit in the world of Wagner.
Oh,
because
wow.
it's heroes.
Okay. Yes.
But what I usually say to people as shorthand is Game of Thrones by Schubert. Because one of the reasons that this opera was not popular, and it got knocked on the head very early on, because just as it was being composed, Rossini arrived with his troupe in Vienna, and the Viennese went mad for Rossini.
Oh, wow.
And an opera had been commissioned from Webern called Euryanthe, and it was a complete flop. Nobody wanted anything but Rossini.
Wow.
And then after Rossini came Verismo, when you've got to be a seamstress or a courtesan or a travelling circus person to be interesting. Yes. Because only sort of working class people are interesting. And kings and queens have had it, and heroes, oh dear, that's just laughable. Yeah. But I think because of the success of Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, this vaguely sort of spiritual stuff, high-flown stuff, is coming back.
Oh,
and people can sit through it without snickering. You say that may the force be with you, and people don't fall around laughing. So
is it, in terms of musicality, I mean, I know you said that the story is very much like Wagner, and so the song spiel is much like Mozart. Are there any other composers that you can hear in the music?
I can certainly hear Wagner. And Beethoven, of course. Schubert idolised Beethoven.
Yes.
So yes, it's absolutely of its time.
Yes.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
No, of course not. And will you be putting it in the actual time that it was set? Okay.
Yes. Which, as you know, at Opera Botte we almost always do.
Yes. And why is that important to you?
Well, because for me, the audience have got to suspend their disbelief. From the time they're in the theatre, they've got to believe it. If they don't believe it, how can they be moved by it? How can they grow in empathy through it if they don't believe it? And if you set something in a modern age, well, I think Judi Dench was very clever on this, because she said about Romeo and Juliet, if you set them in blue jeans, then the audience thinks, well, why don't they fax Friar Lauren? This was in the days when, you fax, but nowadays they all have mobile phones. And also, ideas about the role of women and what is virtue and so on have changed so completely. So how can you have any sympathy with Claudio in Much Ado, for instance? He is horrified because he thinks his bride has spoken with a man out at a window. Well, so what? Dress him in blue jeans and he's a freak. I think the production of Katya Kabanova showed this, because they set it in 1960s Prague, which was the abortion capital of the world and where free love abounded. And so they made the heroine seem neurotic because she felt guilty about having had an affair. Now, if they'd set it in the proper time, she would obviously have felt guilty. She felt particularly moved to confession when she was in church, because she'd already sung an aria describing how she felt very spiritual in church. So they moved it to a bus stop in a city where anything went, and it's slightly jarred.
But it doesn't. Anything doesn't always go for everyone, though. You know, so you've always got two sides of life happening at the same time. So I mean, I went to see the production, and I have to say it was amazing.
Oh, well, it was amazing because of the music.
Oh,
it was wonderful.
And I thought, you know, Amanda just played. She was
fantastic.
She was stunning.
Oh yes.
So there could have been. There was always a small portion that doesn't follow the way everybody else is going, and so the story could still be true for that time in the space that it was.
What? That people at that age, 1960s Prague, wouldn't have known that thunder and lightning was electricity.
No, but you know that there are still people that we find that, you know, that haven't even, never even left their village or their, you know, we still find that now. So it will always apply to someone, and I know that I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, I do think that stories are told in the time that they were at, but I do believe that the emotions and everything attached to them are always relatable to the time we're in now.
Well, that's why I moved Figaro.
Yes.
Because the only way that I could show this seething discontent politically of that time, when you were looked down on because you weren't born into a certain family and you hadn't got a font before your name, the only way I could make modern audiences see that is to go back in the past, but to something they would understand, which was the last day of the Civil War in America. So all this uneasiness that all these servants are in fact slaves and tomorrow they'll be free. That I think was worth doing, because that actually pinpointed the social problems. But I set things mainly in their time in which they were written, because that is suitable for the social mores and the problems and the conundra. I mean, I don't see how you could set Idomeneo, for instance, in a time that didn't believe in human sacrifice.
And I think obviously as well, different opera companies have different meanings for them of why they change things as well. And I love the fact that for you in Opera de Beaujeu, that is about keeping the stories as they are and telling them as authentically as you most possibly can. And I think every opera company has a very different reason for doing different things. So we're just going to stay with, you know, what you love to do there, and we're going to celebrate that, you know, because I think that's what's important, you know. So I feel that the audience are in for a real treat with this new Schubert piece then. And
well, now that's why I've come to you for help with making this video, because I think that we want as many people as possible to see this. If it's good, and I'm thinking
I know, don't say that. You can't say that. Cut that bit, definitely, if it's good.
But if it's as good as I think it will be, then we want as many people as possible to see it. And I've often said that if I come out of the theatre and I hear what's going on around me, and if I heard anyone discussing the direction, I would be disappointed, because from my point of view it should be completely unobtrusive. It presents the work. On the other hand, if I hear people saying, well, I never realised that was such a good piece, then I think, thank you very much, I've done my work. So I'd like lots of people to see it, and that means that we need to get on video platforms, and that means we have to be able to afford to have a professional video made. And so I'm going to crowdfund for that.
Oh, brilliant.
And I'm going to beg and borrow and maybe steal so that I can get a decent video. And there are video platforms that have said they will put it on if it's up to standard.
Amazing.
So hopefully then that will go out to opera people.
And they'll see the work.
Have the power to make decisions about what's put on in houses. And maybe this opera can be reborn.
Oh, that's such a lovely story. It's almost like you're spreading a bit more magic into the world just by, you know, I don't know, feeding life into this Schubert opera, and it's just amazing.
It is worth it. It's beautiful.